please stop. I can't take any more," she cried, then climbed onto the cowboy in the dark barn. The night was unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that seemed heavy and almost alive. A cool breeze rustled through the old barn, making the wooden walls creak and the shadows dance in strange shapes. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she stood near the entrance, her hands trembling slightly. She had never been in this part of the ranch alone before, and the thought of being here in the dark made her stomach twist with unease. Earlier that evening, she had been helping her family with chores, as she did almost every day. The barn was full of the usual smells of hay, leather, and the faint scent of animals, though tonight it all seemed sharper, stronger, almost threatening. She had been feeding the horses and making sure the supplies were in order when a sudden noise had startled her. It sounded like footsteps, though no one else was supposed to be around. "Hello?" she called softly, her voice barely carrying beyond the stalls. Only the echo of her own voice responded. She took a step forward, trying to steady herself, but the barn seemed bigger than usual, the shadows deeper. Each creak of the wooden floorboards made her flinch. She told herself it was just the wind, that it was silly to be scared. But fear has a way of twisting reason, and her mind began to imagine things that weren't there. As she moved further inside, she noticed a faint shape crouched in the corner, half hidden by the shadows. Her first instinct was to turn and run, but curiosity rooted her to the spot. The shape shifted slightly, and a soft voice called out, "Emma, is that you?" She blinked and realized it was only Luke, the ranch hand who had often stayed late to check on the animals. Relief flooded through her, but she couldn't let her guard down completely. "Luke." "You scared me," she said, laughing nervously. "I didn't mean to," he replied. "I was just, making sure everything was locked up for the night. The wind has been messing with the doors." Emma nodded, feeling a little embarrassed for letting her imagination get the better of her. She took a deep breath and tried to focus on the chores she still needed to finish. Luke moved closer, holding a lantern that cast a soft, golden light across the barn. The shadows retreated a little, and the barn no longer seemed quite so frightening. Still, there was a tension in the air that she couldn't shake. Emma had always been sensitive to the moods of her surroundings, and tonight something about the barn felt different. The air was heavier, almost electric, as if the space itself was holding its breath. She tried to push the feeling aside, but it lingered, gnawing at the edges of her mind. Luke noticed her unease and gave her a reassuring smile. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe. I'm right here." His voice was calm and steady, a contrast to the storm of thoughts racing through Emma's head. She felt her muscles relax slightly, grateful for the presence of someone familiar in the dark. They moved together toward the far side of the barn, checking the stalls and making sure everything was in order. The horses were restless, stamping their hooves and shifting nervously, as if they too felt the tension in the air. Emma spoke softly to them, running her hands along their necks, trying to calm them. Their warmth and gentle breathing grounded her, reminding her that there was nothing to fear. As they worked, Luke shared stories of his childhood on the ranch, tales of late nights spent under the stars and mornings filled with the smell of fresh hay. Emma listened, smiling at the memories he painted with his words. The familiar sound of laughter began to chase away some of the tension in her chest. For a moment, the barn felt almost cozy, the shadows less menacing, but the night was far from over. A sudden, loud crash echoed from the far corner of the barn, making both of them startle. Emma's heart leapt into her throat. She wanted to scream, but Luke placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "It's okay," he said. "Probably just a loose board or a tool falling. Nothing to worry about." Emma nodded, trying to believe him. Her hand shook as she reached down to pick up a fallen bucket. But Luke's steady presence reminded her that she wasn't alone. They moved toward the source of the noise together, their steps cautious. Each shadow seemed to stretch and twist in the lantern light, creating shapes that were not really there. But Emma kept her focus on Luke and the simple task at hand. Finally, they found the cause. A small pile of hay had shifted, knocking over a metal bucket. Relief washed over Emma, and she laughed nervously. I don't even know, she admitted. Luke chuckled, shaking his head. Don't worry. The barn can play tricks on your mind, especially at night. It's happened to all of us. Emma smiled, feeling a little braver. She realized that fear often came not from real danger, but from the unknown, from shadows and silence that her mind transformed into monsters. And tonight, she had faced it, even if only in small steps. They continued their work, securing the stalls and checking the equipment. The barn felt safer now, and Emma's confidence began to return. She could still feel the tension in the air, but it was no longer overwhelming. She had someone by her side, and that made all the difference. As they finished their chores, Emma looked around the barn, noticing the small details she had ignored in her earlier fear. The way the moonlight filtered through the cracks in the wooden walls, the scent of fresh hay mixed with the faint smell of earth, the soft nickering of the horses as they settled down. The barn was not a place of terror. It was a place of work, of life, of quiet beauty. Luke noticed her reflection and smiled. See? Not so scary after all. Emma nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. She had faced her fear and found courage she didn't know she had. The barn had tested her, and she had passed, learning that fear can be managed when you take one careful step at a time. As they left the barn together, Emma felt lighter. The shadows and creaks no longer held the same power over her. She realized that fear was temporary, but courage, even in small doses, stayed with you. That night, in the quiet of the barn, Emma discovered a strength within herself she hadn't known existed, a quiet, steady bravery that would help her face whatever challenges came next. The night outside was calm, the stars shining above the ranch like tiny guardians in the sky. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill her lungs. She smiled at Luke, grateful for his guidance and presence. The barn behind them was no longer a place of fear but a place of triumph, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, courage could shine through. And though the night still held its mysteries, Emma knew she could face them. One step at a time, one deep breath at a time, she could move forward, stronger and braver than before. Tom word count, approximately 1,310. Written in simple, clear English, fully safe, non-violent, non-explicit, engaging, emotional, suspenseful, and dramatic. Focus on courage, fear, and personal growth. If you want, I can continue with part 2 next, keeping the suspense growing and the story fully engaging for the reader. Do you want me to do part 2 now? Arc. Oh. 2. Expand K-row without heading 1,300 words, my in simple English words. It should be interesting, and every part should be engaging so the audience doesn't get bored. And don't use any violated word. Caveat any violated content. Perfect. Let's continue the story. Here's part 2, expanded to around 1,300 words. Simple English, fully safe and engaging. The story continues with suspense, personal growth, and emotional depth. Bye. The morning sun broke over the horizon, casting warm, golden light across the ranch. Emma woke with a sense of determination. The events of last night had left her shaken, but also strangely empowered. She knew the barn no longer held the same fear, and she wanted to carry that courage into the day. Breakfast was quiet. The ranch house smelled of fresh bread and coffee, and her mother moved about, humming softly. Emma tried to concentrate on the smells and the comforting routine, but her mind kept wandering back to the barn, to the shadows, and to the strange heaviness she had felt. She realized that even though the fear had lessened, a small part of her still wondered what it was that had made the barn feel so alive with tension. Her father noticed her distraction and looked at her with a knowing smile. "Still thinking about last night?" he asked. Emma nodded. "It was just different. The barn felt strange, but I think I understand it better now. It wasn't scary once I faced it with someone there." Her father chuckled. "That's a good lesson. Fear is often bigger in our minds than in reality. But courage? Courage grows every time you face what scares you." Encouraged by his words, Emma finished her breakfast quickly and decided to check on the animals before the heat of the day set in. She had learned that the barn, though it had seemed frightening, was just a place of work and care, full of life. Maybe there was more to learn from it, lessons about patience, responsibility, and understanding. As she approached the barn, she noticed Luke already there, feeding the horses. He waved to her, and Emma waved back, feeling a little lighter than the day before. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of hay and leather, but instead of fear, she felt calm. She approached the horses carefully, stroking their necks and talking to them in a soft voice. "You're doing better than I expected," Luke said with a grin. "You've got a steady hand. That's important with animals." Emma smiled, grateful for the praise. "Thanks. I think last night helped me understand them better. And myself too, I guess." Luke nodded. "That's how it works. The barn can teach you more than just chores. It teaches patience, courage, and even confidence." They spent the morning working together, cleaning stalls, carrying feed, and checking the fences. The sunlight streamed through the barn's windows, casting patterns on the floor. Emma found herself noticing details she had ignored before: the way the dust motes danced in the light, the strength of the wooden beams holding the roof, and the gentle rhythm of the horses' movements. It was peaceful work, and she felt a quiet pride in what they were accomplishing. After a while, Luke suggested they take a break. They stepped outside, leaning against the fence, and watched the horizon. The ranch stretched for miles, fields of green interrupted by clusters of trees and winding dirt paths. Emma felt a sense of wonder at the sheer beauty and openness of the land. She realized that her fear last night had been partly because she had felt small and unprepared, lost in a place that seemed bigger than she was. Now, with the morning light and Luke by her side, she felt part of it instead of overwhelmed by it. "You know," Luke said after a moment, "sometimes the hardest part isn't the fear itself. It's learning to trust yourself and your instincts. You did that last night. You faced your fear, and that's more than most people can say." Emma felt a warmth in her chest at his words. Emma felt a warmth. "I guess I didn't realize I could be brave until I had to be," she admitted. Luke nodded. "Exactly. And bravery isn't about not being scared. It's about moving forward even when you are." Their conversation was interrupted by a loud neigh from one of the horses. Emma turned and saw that one of the younger horses had gotten its hoof caught in a loose section of fence. Her heart leapt, but she forced herself to stay calm. Panicking would only make things worse. She and Luke moved quickly, working together to free the horse without causing it harm. Emma remembered what she had learned about patience and careful action. She spoke softly to the horse, guiding it calmly while Luke worked to lift the fence. Slowly, carefully, they managed to free the animal. It took a moment for it to settle, but soon it was standing calmly, looking at them with wide, trusting eyes. "That was amazing," Luke said, smiling. "You handled that perfectly." calm, patient, and careful. That's exactly what you need when you're dealing with something unpredictable. Emma smiled, feeling a rush of pride. She realized that moments like these, where she had to trust herself and remain composed, were shaping her into someone stronger. The fear she had felt last night seemed distant now, replaced by a sense of capability she had not known she possessed. The rest of the day passed with more work and small lessons. Emma learned to carry heavier loads without straining, to move quietly so as not to startle the animals, and to pay attention to small signs that might indicate something was wrong. Each success built her confidence, and each challenge reminded her that courage was something that grew with experience, not something you were born with. By evening, the sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the ranch. Emma and Luke returned to the barn one last time, checking that everything was secure for the night. As they moved through the familiar space, Emma noticed how much the barn had changed for her. The shadows were no longer frightening. The creaks of the floorboards were just part of the old building settling. Even the corners that had seemed mysterious and threatening yesterday now felt like ordinary spaces filled with light and life. I never thought I'd feel so at home in this barn, Emma admitted. Yesterday it scared me. Today it feels like it belongs to me too. Luke smiled, handing her a lantern. That's the way it goes. Fear fades when you face it. Confidence grows when you act despite it. And the more time you spend learning, the more comfortable you become. Emma nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. She knew there would be more challenges ahead, but she also knew she had learned something important. That fear could be managed, that courage could be found, and that she was stronger than she had imagined. As they left the barn and walked toward the house, the first stars began to appear in the sky. Emma looked up and felt a sense of connection to the world around her. The ranch, the animals, and even the shadows that had seemed so frightening the night before were all part of a larger story, one that she was now ready to be a part of, with courage and patience guiding her steps. That night, as she lay in bed, Emma thought about the day's lessons. She realized that bravery didn't always come in big, dramatic moments. Sometimes it was quiet in the small actions, feeding a horse carefully, carrying a heavy load, or simply standing still and facing your fear. Those small moments built into a stronger, more confident self. She drifted off to sleep with a sense of peace. The barn was no longer a place of fear, but a symbol of growth. Each creak, each shadow, each sound of the wind was a reminder that she had learned to face uncertainty with calm and courage, and she knew that tomorrow and every day after, she could take that courage with her, no matter what challenges she might face. The next morning, the ranch was alive with sound. Birds sang in the trees, and the animals stirred in their pens and stalls. Emma woke with the sun warming her face through the window. Today felt different from the others. There was an energy in the air, a sense that something unexpected was about to happen. She felt a flutter of nervous excitement in her chest. She dressed quickly and went outside, inhaling the fresh morning air. The fields were bright with dew, sparkling in the early light. Emma walked toward the barn, her boots crunching on the gravel path. Luke was already there, carrying a stack of feed buckets and humming softly. He waved as she approached. "Morning," he said with a grin. "Looks like today is going to be a busy one." Emma smiled back. "I'm ready. What's first?" Luke handed her a bucket of oats. "We have to check the fences around the back pasture. I noticed a few posts were leaning yesterday. The wind must have been stronger than I thought." Emma nodded and followed him. As they reached the far side of the pasture, she noticed how vast the land was. Rolling fields stretched for miles, dotted with trees and wildflowers. It was beautiful, but also a little intimidating. She remembered the fear she had felt in the barn not long ago and realized how much she had already grown since then. They started repairing the fence, hammering loose posts back into place and tightening wires. Emma struggled at first, finding it harder than she expected, but Luke stayed patient, guiding her hand when necessary and praising her efforts. Each small success made her more confident. By mid-morning, she was moving with steady determination, fixing posts and tightening wires with skills she hadn't known she had. As they worked, Emma noticed movement at the edge of the field. A small group of stray animals, mostly goats and a couple of young calves, had wandered closer to the pasture. They looked anxious, their heads low, as if searching for something familiar. Emma felt a pang of concern. "They shouldn't be out here," she said. "They could get hurt." Luke nodded. "You're right. Let's guide them back slowly. Don't rush. If you startle them, they might run and make things worse." Emma took a deep breath, remembering the lessons from the barn. Patience and calm were key. Patience and calm were key. She approached the animals slowly, speaking in soft tones. They looked at her with wary eyes, but did not run. Step by step, she moved closer, until she was near enough to gently guide them with her hands and voice. The animals followed her carefully, and Luke helped from behind, making sure none of them escaped. Emma felt a thrill of pride. She had managed a situation that could have been chaotic, staying calm and in control. The animals were safe, and she had done it. She realized that courage wasn't about big, heroic acts, but about small, careful decisions that mattered. After returning the animals to safety, they took a short break. Emma leaned against the fence, wiping sweat from her brow, and looked around. The ranch seemed alive with possibilities, every field and tree holding lessons if she paid attention. She felt a sense of connection, not just to the land, but to the work itself, to the responsibility of caring for it, and the creatures that depended on her. Luke joined her, carrying 2 bottles of water. "You're doing great," he said. "You've come a long way since last night. I can see how much more confident you are." Emma smiled, taking a sip. "I feel it too. It's like every time I face something challenging, I realize I can handle more than I thought." Luke nodded. "Exactly. Growth comes from experience, not comfort. And today, we're going to put that growth to the test." Emma's curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" she asked. Luke gestured toward the barn and the fields beyond. "There's a small group of young trees near the creek. They were planted last season, but some have been damaged by storms. We need to repair the supports and make sure the soil is stable. It'll take patience and care. It's not dangerous, but it's a challenge, and I think you're ready for it." Emma felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The task sounded simple enough, but she knew it would test her patience and attention to detail. She followed Luke to the creek, where the young trees stood, some leaning at awkward angles, their roots partially exposed. The ground was damp and soft, and the sunlight reflected off the water in sparkling patterns. Luke handed her a small shovel and some stakes. "Take your time," he said. "Check each tree carefully. Make sure the roots are covered and the supports are strong. Don't rush. Focus on one at a time." Emma knelt in the soil, her hands working carefully. She felt the earth, cool and soft, and listened to the gentle sound of water flowing over rocks. Each tree needed attention. Each root needed support. Each stake needed to be secure. It was meticulous work, but she found it satisfying. The more she concentrated, the more absorbed she became in the task. Hours passed as they worked. The sun climbed higher in the sky and Emma's arms ached, but she kept going. Luke worked alongside her, offering guidance and encouragement. "Remember," he said, "small, careful steps make a difference. Don't focus on how many trees you have left. Focus on doing each one right." Emma nodded, letting his words guide her. She moved slowly, methodically, making sure each tree was secure. Step by step, she began to notice changes. The trees standing taller, the soil packed firmly, the stakes holding everything in place. She felt a sense of accomplishment with each success. By late afternoon, the work was done. The trees were stable, supported, and protected. Emma stepped back, wiping dirt from her hands, and looked at what they had accomplished. She felt pride swell in her chest. The trees, once vulnerable and leaning, now stood strong and secure thanks to her care and attention. Luke smiled at her. "See, you handled that perfectly. Patience, focus, and determination. That's how growth happens, not just for the trees, but for yourself, too." Emma smiled back, feeling the truth of his words. She had learned so much in just a few days. Lessons about fear, patience, courage, and responsibility. And now, as she looked at the stable, thriving young trees, she realized that her confidence was growing too. As they walked back toward the barn, Emma noticed the changing sky. Clouds were rolling in, painted with the colors of the approaching evening. The ranch looked magical in the soft light, each shadow and tree line creating patterns that made the world feel alive. She felt connected to everything, the land, the animals, and the people who cared for it. That night, Emma reflected on the day. She realized that challenges came in many forms, not just frightening or dangerous ones, but those that tested patience, careful thinking, and determination. Each challenge she faced helped her grow, helped her see the strength she had inside. She thought about the barn, the fields, the animals, and the young trees. She remembered how fear had gripped her when she first entered the barn alone, and how courage had grown inside her, with guidance and experience. She realized that growth wasn't a single moment, but a journey made of many small moments, each one important in shaping who she was becoming. Lying in bed, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. The ranch was more than just a place to live. It was a place to learn, to grow, and to discover herself. Each day brought new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to be brave, patient, and thoughtful. And she knew that whatever the future held, she had the skills, the courage, and the confidence to face it. For the first time, she understood that fear was not an enemy, but a guide. It told her what mattered, what needed attention, and what she had the strength to overcome. And she knew that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act in spite of it. As the stars appeared in the sky, Emma smiled, feeling the calm and steady rhythm of life on the ranch. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she was ready. She had learned that with patience, careful action, and courage, she could face anything, and the sense of pride and accomplishment she felt now was proof that she was growing, not just in skill, but in character. The next morning, a soft mist hung over the ranch, giving everything a calm, almost magical look. Emma stepped outside, breathing in the cool, damp air. Her clothes were slightly damp from the morning dew, but she didn't mind. Today felt different. There was a quiet excitement in her chest, a sense that something important was about to happen. As she walked toward the barn, she noticed Luke already there, organizing supplies and checking the animals. He waved to her, his smile calm and encouraging. "Morning, Emma." "Ready for today?" Emma nodded. "Yes." "What's on the plan today?" Luke motioned toward the far fields. "We have a little problem. One of the fences along the creek has been damaged by last night's windstorm. If we don't fix it soon, the younger animals might wander off. It's going to be a challenge, but I think you're ready." Emma's stomach fluttered. Fixing fences along the creek would be tricky. The ground was uneven, and the soil was damp from the mist. But she remembered all she had learned so far: patience, careful thinking, courage, and felt ready to face it. They reached the creek, and Emma saw the damage clearly. Several fence posts had been knocked over, and the wire was twisted and loose. The water ran quickly nearby, making the ground slippery in places. Emma took a deep breath and looked at the work ahead. She realized that this challenge would test not only her strength, but her attention and planning skills. Luke handed her a hammer and some new posts. "Take it slow," he advised. "Think through each step before acting. One careful move is better than rushing and making a mistake." Emma knelt in the soil and examined the first post. She felt the cool earth and noted how soft it was near the creek. She placed the new post carefully, making sure it was straight and secure before moving to the next one. Step by step she worked, focusing on one small section at a time. Hours passed and the sun began to rise higher, burning away the mist. Emma's arms ached, and her clothes were muddy, but she didn't give up. Luke stayed close, offering tips and encouragement. "Remember, it's okay to take breaks, but don't lose focus. You're doing great," he said. Emma paused for a moment, wiping sweat and mud from her brow. She looked around at the creek, the field, and the animals watching curiously from the other side. She felt a sense of determination swell inside her. Each post she secured, each wire she tightened, was a small victory. She realized that the feeling of accomplishment wasn't just about finishing the task, but about giving her best effort even when it was hard. As they moved along the fence line, a sudden sound made Emma jump. A branch had broken off a tree, falling into the creek with a loud splash. The younger animals stirred nervously, looking toward the noise. Emma felt her heart beat faster, but she took a deep breath. She reminded herself that panic wouldn't help anyone. Calm action would. She spoke softly to the animals, guiding them back from the creek's edge, while Luke worked to secure the nearby posts. Emma felt proud of how quickly she could think and act under pressure. She realized that courage didn't always mean being fearless. It meant staying calm and focused when things got difficult. By mid-morning, most of the fence was repaired, but the ground near the creek was unstable. Emma had to think carefully about how to secure the remaining posts. She looked around, noticing stones, branches, and other natural materials that could help stabilize the soil. With Luke's guidance, she used these materials to strengthen the base of each post. It took patience and careful planning, but the result was a strong, secure fence that would protect the animals. Emma stepped back, feeling a wave of pride. She had faced a real challenge and succeeded. The creek no longer seemed dangerous, the animals were safe, and she had proven to herself that she could handle difficult situations. As they worked together to clean up, Luke smiled at her. "You've done really well today. Not just because the fence is fixed, but because of how carefully and thoughtfully you worked. That's the sign of true growth." Emma smiled back, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. She realized that today's challenge had been different from the barn or the young trees. It wasn't about fear or patience alone. It was about planning, problem-solving, and thinking ahead. And she had done all of that successfully. After finishing, they walked back toward the barn, carrying their tools and taking a moment to enjoy the scenery. The sun had burned off most of the mist, leaving the ranch bright and beautiful. Emma felt a quiet satisfaction in her chest. She realized that each day brought new lessons, and each challenge, no matter how small or large, was an opportunity to grow. Back at the barn, they tended to the animals and prepared feed for the evening. Emma felt a sense of routine and comfort in these tasks. She had come to understand that life on the ranch wasn't just about completing chores. It was about observing, learning, and growing with every small step. As the evening approached, Emma noticed the sky changing colors. Shades of pink and orange stretched across the horizon, reflecting in the creek and painting the fields in warm light. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that the day had been challenging but successful. She realized that facing challenges didn't just make her stronger, it made her more aware of the beauty and complexity of the world around her. Luke joined her at the barn door. "You've come a long way, Emma," he said. "I can see that you're learning more than just how to work on the ranch. You're learning how to think, how to stay calm, and how to trust yourself. That's something that will stay with you forever." Emma nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She thought about the barn, the young trees, the animals, and the fence along the creek. Each challenge had tested her in different ways, teaching her lessons she would not forget, and each success had strengthened her confidence and courage. That night, as she lay in bed, Emma reflected on everything she had learned. She understood that life would continue to present challenges, some easy, some difficult. But she also knew that with patience, careful thinking, and courage, she could face them all. She thought about the creek, the fence, and the small animals that had watched her work. She realized that true responsibility was about more than just doing a task. It was about caring for others, whether people, animals, or the land itself. That thought made her feel proud and determined to keep learning and growing. The stars appeared outside her window, twinkling brightly in the clear night sky. Emma felt a quiet connection to the world around her. The ranch, with all its challenges and lessons, was teaching her something important, that growth, courage, and confidence came from facing difficulties, taking care, and staying calm, even when things seemed hard. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt a sense of peace and readiness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she knew she had the skills, the courage, and the patience to face them. The lessons she had learned in the barn, with the young trees, and along the creek had built a foundation she could rely on, a foundation of confidence and strength that would guide her through anything. The sun rose slowly over the ranch, casting golden light across the fields. Emma woke with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt before. Today felt different, important somehow. She knew that the past few days had taught her lessons about patience, courage, and responsibility, and she wanted to apply everything she had learned. After breakfast, Emma stepped outside and took a deep breath of the fresh morning air. The dew still clung to the grass, and the soft sounds of the animals waking filled the air. It was a peaceful, calm start, but Emma sensed that today would require all the skills she had been practicing. She smiled to herself, ready to face whatever came next. Luke was already at the barn, checking the horses and preparing tools for the day. "Good morning," he said with a friendly smile. "Today we have a bigger task than before. There's a small section of the pasture that has been overgrown with weeds and fallen branches. It's starting to take over, and the animals need clear space to graze safely. It's going to take time and effort, but I think you're ready." Emma nodded. She had learned from the barn, the young trees, and the creek fence that challenges could be handled if she stayed calm, focused, and patient. "I'm ready," she said confidently. They set off together toward the overgrown section of the pasture. Emma noticed how wild and untamed it had become. Tall grass, thick weeds, and scattered branches made the area difficult to navigate. She felt a small flutter of nervousness, but she reminded herself of everything she had already accomplished. Fear had taught her lessons, but courage and careful thinking had helped her overcome it. Luke handed her a pair of gloves and a small hand rake. "Take it one step at a time," he said. "Work carefully, don't rush, and keep your eyes open. You'll see progress before you know it." Emma knelt in the grass and began clearing small patches. She pulled weeds carefully, gathered fallen branches, and worked methodically. Each section she cleared felt like a victory. She noticed the small animals, rabbits, birds, and even a few curious squirrels, watching her from the edge of the trees. Emma smiled at them, feeling connected to the life around her. Hours passed as the morning light grew stronger. Emma's arms ached and sweat ran down her face, but she didn't stop. She focused on one small patch at a time, moving steadily and with purpose. Luke stayed close, helping her lift heavier branches and showing her efficient ways to clear the area. Emma listened carefully and applied what she had learned about patience, problem-solving, and careful thinking. By midday, a large portion of the pasture had been cleared. Emma stepped back to look at their work. The difference was remarkable. What had once been a tangled, wild area was now open, safe, and clean. The animals would have room to graze freely, and the risk of injury had been removed. Emma felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Luke clapped her on the shoulder. "You've done an amazing job, not just because the pasture is cleared, but because of the care and attention you put into it. That's what makes a real difference." Emma smiled, feeling proud. She realized that her journey on the ranch had been about more than just chores. It had been about learning how to face challenges, stay calm under pressure, and take responsibility for herself and others. Each day had tested her in different ways, and each challenge had helped her grow stronger. After lunch, they moved on to a smaller task, checking on the young animals in the farthest pasture. Emma led the way, confident in her steps. She noticed how her mind had changed over the past days. Where she once would have been anxious or unsure, she now felt calm, attentive, and thoughtful. She observed each animal carefully, checking for signs of discomfort or hunger, and made small adjustments to ensure their well-being. One of the younger horses had a small cut on its leg from a hidden branch. Emma's heart sank for a moment, but she remembered her training. She stayed calm, cleaned the wound, and bandaged it carefully with Luke's guidance. The horse calmed quickly, and Emma felt a surge of pride. She had handled a situation that might have worried her before, and she had acted with confidence and care. As the afternoon sun began to lower, they returned to the barn. Emma noticed how much she had changed in just a few days. She was stronger, more confident, and more aware of her surroundings. The barn no longer held fear or uncertainty. The pasture, the creek, and the young trees had all been challenges that taught her patience, focus, and courage. Luke looked at her with a smile. "Emma, I hope you realize how far you've come. You're not just learning skills on the ranch, you're learning about yourself. Courage, patience, responsibility, and confidence are all part of what you've been building, and they'll stay with you no matter what you do." Emma felt a warmth in her chest. "I see that now," she said softly. "I understand the challenges are opportunities to learn and grow, and I feel ready to face whatever comes next." The evening arrived with a gentle glow, and Emma took a moment to walk through the pasture alone. She watched the sun set behind the distant hills, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. The animals grazed calmly and the wind whispered through the trees. Everything felt peaceful, safe, and beautiful. Emma thought back to her first day in the barn, when shadows and creaks had filled her with fear. She remembered the way she had trembled at the unknown, how the smallest sounds had seemed threatening. And now she felt a quiet pride in herself. She had learned to stay calm, to act with care, and to trust in her own strength. Fear had not disappeared, but she had learned how to handle it. As night fell, she joined Luke and her family for dinner. The ranch house was warm and full of laughter. Emma realized that her journey was not just about individual growth, but also about connection. She had learned to rely on guidance, to work together, and to appreciate the help of those around her. Each lesson had been meaningful because she had shared it with others. After dinner, Emma walked back to the barn one last time. The moon was high in the sky, casting soft silver light over the fields. She stood for a moment, looking at the barn, the pastures, and the creek. Everything seemed familiar and welcoming. She realized that this place, which had once filled her with fear, had become a space of learning, courage, and confidence. Emma knelt briefly to stroke one of the horses. The animal nickered softly, as if recognizing the growth in her. She smiled, feeling a deep sense of connection and accomplishment. She had faced challenges, learned from them, and come out stronger. As she returned to the house, she thought about the future. Life on the ranch would continue to bring challenges, storms, unexpected problems, and hard work. But she now felt prepared. She understood that courage and confidence came from experience, patience, and careful action. Each small victory added to her strength, and she knew she could face whatever came next. That night, as Emma lay in bed, she reflected on her journey. The barn, the young trees, the creek, the pasture, each had been a challenge, a teacher, and a test of her abilities. And through them all, she had discovered something important, that true strength comes from patience, careful thought, courage, and persistence. She felt proud of herself, not just for completing tasks, but for growing into someone capable and confident. She realized that the lessons she had learned would stay with her forever, guiding her through future challenges, helping her stay calm under pressure, and reminding her of the courage she had discovered inside herself. As the stars twinkled outside her window, Emma closed her eyes with a smile. She knew that the ranch, with all its lessons and challenges, had changed her. She was no longer just a girl learning to navigate chores and animals. She was a young person capable of courage, patience, responsibility, and care. And as she drifted into sleep, she felt a deep sense of peace and accomplishment. Tomorrow would bring new tasks, new challenges, and new opportunities to learn. But Emma knew that she was ready. She had faced fear, worked hard, and discovered her own strength. And that, she understood, was the greatest reward of all.